Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging headfirst into the core question of what truly drives progress for businesses, especially, those daring enough to navigate the uncharted waters of new ventures.
Yeah, the really uncertain stuff.
Exactly. We're talking about shifting away from the comfortable, but often misleading old notions of rigid business plans and grand, bold declarations.
Those big 5-year plans that are obsolete almost immediately.
Precisely. Our mission today is to uncover how some of the most successful organizations fundamentally redefine progress. Not by simply ticking off features shipped or products launched, but by something far more profound. Objective, verifiable learning.
hmm
This is part 2 of our deep dive into the lean startup methodology, and we're zeroing in on the power of validated learning and maybe what might be the most misunderstood concept in the entrepreneurial world, the pivot, as a structured, deliberate decision.
Indeed. And we're examining a methodology that offers, well, a genuine roadmap for entrepreneurs and innovators. It helps them not only make sense of chaos, but actually move forward with real confidence.
Which is key when everything feels chaotic.
Absolutely. And crucially, it provides the tools to understand when and how to change direction strategically. It's about injecting a kind of scientific rigor into entrepreneurship, making progress measurable and accountable even when the path ahead is anything but clear.
Right.
Validated learning, as we'll explore, it's really the bedrock of this approach. It offers a systematic and rigorous method for demonstrating real forward motion, even in the most ambiguous and chaotic environments.
And what you'll discover today, I think, is that these principles resonate far beyond just the garage startup or the tech incubator.
Oh, definitely.
Whether you're an individual trying to bring a new idea to life, a small business looking to innovate, or even a leader in an established corporation trying to carve out new growth, understanding how businesses can truly learn and adapt their way to success is absolutely paramount.
It applies across the board.
Get ready to explore how this systematic approach transforms what often feels like daunting uncertainty into a powerful opportunity for continuous growth and strategic agility. Let's unpack how to truly learn your way to success. Okay, let's dive into this. For generations, we've been drilled on the importance of a meticulously crafted business plan, right? Exhaustive market research, a rock-solid strategy. The MBA playbook, essentially. Exactly. These were the very hallmarks of preparedness, the indicators of likely success that investors and mentors alike would demand. You'd spend months, maybe even years, poring over spreadsheets, projecting financials 5 years out, mapping every conceivable scenario.
Convinced that more detail equals less risk.
Precisely. Convinced that the more detailed and robust your plan, the less risk you'd face. But here's the rub. When it comes to startups, or really any venture pushing the boundaries of true innovation, these traditional indicators can actually become a formidable trap.
A huge trap.
Leading you down the garden path to, well, often failure.
And what's truly fascinating here is how the lean startup methodology just completely upends this conventional wisdom. It doesn't just question these practices, it highlights that, and this is a direct insight, the first problem is the allure of a good plan, a solid strategy, and thorough market research.
The very things we were taught to value most.
Right. While these might have been foundational in earlier, more predictable industrial eras, they simply don't work for startups. And the reason is fundamental. Startups are intrinsically different because they operate with too much uncertainty.
That's the key phrase, isn't it? Too much uncertainty.
It is. They exist in a state of high flux, where they often don't yet know who their customer is or what their product should be. This isn't a minor detail. It's a foundational difference in their operational reality.
It changes everything.
It does. In essence, a startup is a grand experiment, not an execution of a known formula. And, this isn't just a startup phenomenon anymore. The world itself is becoming more uncertain across the board. It's making it harder and harder to predict the future.
We feel that everywhere.
Consequently, the old management methods are simply not up to the task of navigating this new, continuously shifting landscape. You could devote endless resources to crafting the most beautiful, comprehensive plan, but if your core assumptions about your customer or your product are fundamentally flawed, which, let's be honest, they almost certainly are in a true startup,
Yeah, the odds are high.
then that elaborate plan becomes little more than a beautifully constructed work of fiction, leading you nowhere fast.
That's such a crucial distinction, and it's not just theoretical, right? We see these real-world, often gut-wrenching examples of how unpredictable factors and deep uncertainty can absolutely derail even the most ambitious and, frankly, well-funded plans.
Oh, absolutely. The landscape is littered with them.
Take Elon Musk's journey with Tesla, particularly the early days of the original Roadster. The initial business plan, drawn up in 2004, optimistically estimated development costs at a cool $25 million.
Sounds almost quaint now, doesn't it?
It really does. Sounds perfectly reasonable for a cutting-edge electric vehicle, especially for a visionary like Musk, right? But the reality was a stark contrast. The Roadster's development spiraled, eventually costing around $140 million.
Wow. That's more than 5 times the estimate.
More than 5 times, and this wasn't just a slight miscalculation on a spreadsheet. They were navigating the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression.
Right. The external context was brutal.
Imagine that even with the powerful brand of a visionary founder and a team of top talent, Musk had to scramble to convince investors to fork over tens of millions of additional dollars at a time when, as he put it, everything you read about the car company sounds like it is shit and doomed.
Yeah, talk about pressure.
That right there is the true face of operating in extreme uncertainty, where initial plans are almost guaranteed to be dramatically, profoundly wrong. The market shifts, unforeseen external factors hit you like a tsunami, and your perfectly laid plans simply evaporate into thin air.
And this challenge of uncertainty, it isn't exclusive to nascent startups. Not at all. Established companies, too, can be blindsided if they cling too rigidly to existing plans and, importantly, a fixed definition of their customers and market.
That's the innovator's dilemma point, right?
Exactly. The classic case from the innovator's dilemma perfectly illustrates this. IBM and the mini computer. Back then, IBM was the undisputed behemoth in mainframes, catering to its established, high-value corporate customers. Then came the mini computer.
A seemingly smaller, less capable thing.
Precisely. Which was a clear, disruptive technology to their core business. From IBM's perspective, their existing mainframe customers had no use for it. The mini computer promised lower, not higher margins, and its market initially was significantly smaller.
So from their existing business logic, it made no sense to pursue.
Logically, rationally, based on their current success metrics and customer needs, it made perfect sense to ignore it. But this fixed, ingrained view of the market and customer blinded a global leader to a monumental new opportunity.
Creating a vacuum.
It created a vacuum that allowed new, agile entrants to completely dominate the mini computer market for years, eventually eating into IBM's broader market share. This perfectly demonstrates how a lack of strategic agility, fueled by an unwavering adherence to a predefined plan, can be catastrophic when deep uncertainty introduces new, disruptive forces.
Okay, so if we can't rely on a perfectly crafted, static plan in these turbulent, unpredictable waters, if those traditional indicators of success are actually traps, what then becomes the true measure of forward momentum?
Yeah, how do you know you're actually getting somewhere?
Right. How do you keep from feeling utterly lost or worse, just spinning your wheels endlessly when you don't even know who your customer is or precisely what your product should be? It's a truly fundamental question. It demands a complete reevaluation of how we understand entrepreneurial progress.
This is indeed the crucial question, and it shifts the entire paradigm. If progress isn't about adhering rigidly to a static plan, then it must fundamentally be about learning and adapting.
Learning becomes the new progress metric.
Exactly. And that's precisely where innovation accounting steps in, marking a profound shift from traditional financial accounting. The lean startup clearly identifies innovation accounting as absolutely crucial. It states that to improve entrepreneurial outcomes and hold innovators accountable, we need to focus on the boring stuff.
The boring stuff. Love that.
How to measure progress, how to set up milestones, and how to prioritize work. This isn't about glamorous product launches or high-profile events. It's about the underlying systematic rigor that allows you to navigate true uncertainty.
It's the plumbing, not just the fixtures.
Well put. It specifically requires a new kind of accounting designed for startups and the people who hold them accountable. The core, undeniable purpose of innovation accounting is to allow startups to prove objectively that they are learning how to grow a sustainable business.
Objectively, that's the key word there.
It is. It's not about the sheer volume of lines of code written or the number of products shipped in isolation. It's about the learning and validated knowledge derived from those actions. Are we actually moving closer to a viable business model based on real customer feedback, or are we just incredibly busy but effectively going nowhere?
What strikes me as particularly fascinating about innovation accounting is how it bridges that gap between the intangible idea of learning and something quantifiable, something you can actually track and act on.
Right, it makes learning concrete.
This isn't just a fuzzy qualitative concept. It absolutely requires a rigorous quantitative approach. It's almost like building a dynamic financial model around your core assumptions to track whether your learning is genuinely leading to a sustainable business.
Mm.
Every business plan, even if it's just a rough sketch scribbled on the back of a napkin, inherently has a model associated with it. This model provides assumptions about what the business will look like at a successful point in the future.
Your hypotheses about how value is created and captured.
Exactly. For instance, let's move beyond manufacturing for a moment. If you're building a sauce product, your growth isn't just a given, right? It depends on very specific measurable drivers. Say, the monthly recurring revenue per customer, customer acquisition cost, your activation rate, and, crucially, the customer churn rate.
Those key levers.
Or for an e-commerce platform, it might be conversion rates for specific sales funnels, average order value, or the lifetime value of a customer. The higher these values are, the faster the company will grow and the more profitable it will be.
Naturally.
These are the drivers of the company's growth model that innovation accounting helps you constantly refine and validate through real-world data and experimentation. You're not just making educated guesses, you're building a powerful iterative feedback loop to see if your efforts are actually moving the needle on these critical, objective drivers.
Testing those assumptions against reality.
Which allows you to discern between mere vanity metrics like total downloads, which might look good but mean nothing, and truly actionable metrics that actually inform your next steps.
Exactly. It's a powerful and necessary shift in how we understand and manage accountability. Instead of asking, did you slavishly stick to the original plan? The crucial question becomes, are we learning and adapting effectively? Is our validated learning objectively demonstrating tangible progress towards a viable business model?
A much better question.
A much more relevant one in uncertainty. Success, in this context, is entirely about consistently making informed progress through experimentation. The ultimate validation of this learning comes when the business achieves a successful point in the future, a moment where the market unequivocally confirms your learning.
Like the big wins.
Precisely. Think of Pixar's triumph with Toy Story. That wasn't just a beloved movie. It was a foundational success that enabled Pixar to go public in November of 1995. It validated their unique approach to animation and storytelling as a sustainable, incredibly profitable business model built on years of learning and iteration.
A long process of figuring things out.
Definitely. Or consider Intel and the IBM PC. The IBM PC, powered by Intel's 8088 microprocessor, wasn't just another computer. It became the motherlode application for Intel's microprocessors, selling an astonishing 750,000 units in its first year.
Finding that killer app, essentially.
Exactly. These examples aren't simply about shipping a product. They represent the culmination of a scientific process of iterative development, relentless market exploration, and validated learning that ultimately led to massive commercial success.
It connects back to Drucker, too, doesn't it?
It resonates so strongly with Peter Drucker's timeless insight that results exist only on the outside. The result of a business is a satisfied customer. Innovation accounting provides the objective, empirical mechanism to measure how effectively you are continuously moving towards and critically satisfying that external customer through rigorous, continuous learning.
That's a powerful framework for understanding progress. But, okay, if we're constantly learning and adapting, if the goal isn't just to execute a plan but to learn as efficiently as possible, it raises a very practical question. How does this actually translate into our daily operations?
Right, the day-to-day reality.
How do we organize our work, our teams, our entire company when the goal is this rapid, validated learning? It sounds like it demands a complete reevaluation of our operational processes, especially how we manage tasks and projects. One of the most stubborn instincts in business, even when things are clearly going off the rails, is to cling to what feels efficient. And more often than not, that means working in large batches.
Yeah, the big project mentality.
Think about it. Big projects, long development cycles, massive product launches planned years in advance. It feels efficient because you're dedicating huge blocks of time to one thing. But our sources suggest this can be a real enemy of validated learning and, frankly, of common sense in a dynamic environment.
It creates massive risk.
The Lean Startup highlights a profound problem here. It says, when I work with product managers and designers in companies that use large batches, I often discover that they have to redo their work 5 or 6 times for every release.
5 or 6 times. Imagine the waste.
Can you imagine the sheer waste of time, effort, and morale there? And the problem isn't just the inefficiency itself, it's deeper, almost psychological. So strong is the instinct to work in large batches that even when a large batch system is malfunctioning, we have a tendency to blame ourselves.
Right, we think we're the problem, not the system.
We assume we aren't working hard enough or smart enough, or that we just need to push harder rather than questioning the deeply flawed system itself. I'm reminded of trying to plan a massive, all-encompassing family vacation years in advance.
Uh-oh.
By the time it came around, half the kids' interests had changed, the ideal destination had become a tourist trap, and the initial budget was a pipe dream. It felt efficient to plan everything at once, but the reality was a constant struggle to adapt.
That's a perfect analogy, and it points to a crucial trap that severely hinders the validated learning process. Large batches fundamentally delay feedback.
The learning cycle gets stretched way out.
Exactly, and that delay, in turn, dramatically increases the cost of mistakes. The longer you invest in something, be it a design mock-up, a software feature, or an entire product line before getting real-world validation from customers, the more pain, expense, and backtracking you'll endure if it turns out to be wrong.
It makes errors much more expensive.
Exponentially so. And this is beautifully illustrated by the principle of self-organizing criticality. Imagine sand falling grain by grain onto a pile. Most grains cause tiny imperceptible shifts, but every so often, one seemingly insignificant grain triggers a massive cascade, a catastrophic landslide.
The straw that breaks the camel's back.
Sort of, yeah. The principle teaches us that a lot of little corrections create stability, but one huge correction creates catastrophe. This applies directly to product development. Many small, continuous adjustments, informed by rapid feedback, create stability and guide you incrementally towards a successful outcome.
Course correcting constantly.
Whereas waiting until you're miles off course to make a major correction, a huge batch of work, is just a recipe for catastrophic failure. Small, continuous iterations allow for minor course corrections almost in real time, preventing those devastating failures that large, infrequent adjustments inevitably cause.
So smaller batches mean faster feedback and safer adjustments.
Precisely. This approach fosters a culture where frequent small pivots or course corrections are not just acceptable, but expected and even celebrated as vital learning opportunities.
That makes profound sense. I mean, we've all encountered that classic scenario in the workplace or heard stories about the product manager so inundated with interruptions that he took to coming into the office in the middle of the night so that he could work uninterrupted, just to get his massive batch of work done.
Trying to force the large batch through.
Exactly. And yet, when the suggestion came to switch to single-piece flow or smaller iterative work, he adamantly refused because that would be inefficient.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
It's that deeply ingrained, almost reflexive belief that bigger projects equate to greater productivity, even when they're demonstrably failing to deliver results or, more importantly, insights. This mindset actively starves the system of the very thing it needs most: rapid, actionable feedback.
Feedback which is absolutely necessary for validated learning. Indeed. This powerful instinct to work in large batches is often rooted in a desire for perceived control and efficiency, but it inadvertently starves the system of timely, actionable information. Instead, what we need are organizational systems that inherently support continuous learning and adaptation.
Systems designed for learning.
Consider the historical example of General Motors' decentralized operations under Alfred Sloan. This wasn't just an organizational chart, it was a vast, sprawling learning system. This approach allowed problems of like kind to be met in different ways by different division managers.
Different experiments running in parallel.
Exactly. Instead of a single, centralized plan, different divisions experimented with varied solutions to similar problems. What emerged out of this process was a continuous winnowing of techniques and ideas and a development of judgments and skills.
Survival of the fittest ideas, almost.
In a way, yes. This is essentially a large-scale, continuous learning system, actively favoring the exploration and validation of multiple different approaches over a rigid, top-down, single-solution mandate. It highlights the immense value of allowing multiple smaller experiments to run concurrently, gathering diverse data, and then scaling the most successful ones.
Like a portfolio of bets.
Effectively, yes. A constant iterative cycle of work and learning that includes the ability to pivot when that learning reveals a better path.
So instead of placing huge, risky bets based on a grand, unvalidated master plan, we're talking about taking a series of small, informed, and carefully measured steps that allow for constant adjustment.
Small steps, big learning.
This requires a very specific kind of agility, though, both in the practical processes we use and perhaps even more critically, in the underlying mindset of the entire organization.
Culture is huge here.
It's about building a muscle for continuous learning and responsive action, which, for many established businesses, represents a significant cultural shift sometimes, a Herculean effort.
It really can be. To succeed in this environment of profound uncertainty, companies absolutely need to cultivate what we call strategic agility. This means being not just willing, but actively ready to adapt their core direction or even execute a significant pivot based on what they learn from innovation accounting and real-world experiments.
You can't just measure, you have to act.
Exactly. It's not enough to have a meticulously crafted plan. You need to be constantly testing, refining, and, if necessary, changing it. This necessitates embedding everyday innovation at all levels of the organization, not confining it to an isolated R&D lab or a dedicated startup team.
Innovation everywhere.
Research suggests that local innovativeness is a critical gene pool of new ideas, especially for corporations dependent on innovation for strategic advance. The ability to understand how pockets of innovation develop and then how meritorious ideas can be nourished, refined, and disseminated throughout the company is absolutely key for maintaining a competitive advantage.
Tapping into the collective intelligence.
Right. It's about building an organizational immune system that can detect new opportunities and threats quickly and then respond effectively, rather than being caught flat-footed.
A fantastic and maybe surprising example of this responsive strategy is Procter & Gamble's Bounty paper towels. You might initially think, how much innovation can there really be in paper towels?
Seems pretty straightforward, right?
But Bounty didn't just stay as one monolithic product. They brilliantly evolved it into 3 distinct product lines, each meticulously targeting a specific consumer segment.
Segmenting based on need.
For instance, Bounty Basic was developed specifically for the strength and price-conscious segment, designed to be noticeably stronger than other value brands while remaining affordable. This wasn't a one-size-fits-all approach. It was a direct adaptation to distinct market needs.
A series of small product pivots.
Exactly. A series of smaller pivots in product strategy based on a deep understanding of varied customer demands. This contrasts sharply with what management guru Peter Drucker identified as the 5th bad habit of established businesses. They maximize rather than optimize.
Trying to be everything to everyone.
He famously cited Xerox, for example, which tried to satisfy every single user with the same, often over-featured product. In contrast, Japanese competitors in the copier market designed machines that fitted specific groups of users, for example, the small office, whether that of the dentist, the doctor, or the school principal.
Niche focus first.
They started simple, found their niche, and then, as Drucker explained, moved in on the other markets, each with a product designed to serve optimally a specific market segment. This is a perfect illustration of iterative market entry and continuous adaptation.
A series of mini pivots in product market fit that ultimately led to far greater success.
Okay, but doing that kind of adaptation requires the right environment, doesn't it?
That iterative, adaptive approach fundamentally requires a very specific kind of organizational culture. One that not only welcomes feedback, but actively, almost aggressively, solicits it, even when that feedback is uncomfortable or challenges deeply held beliefs.
You need psychological safety.
Absolutely. The concept of radical candor highlights that rigorous debate is absolutely essential. Regularly scheduling debates on important topics forces a team to keep wrestling with it, digging up needed information, getting expert input, or just thinking more deeply.
Keeps people from just agreeing too quickly.
Exactly. This active and often challenging engagement prevents rushing into a decision before it's thoroughly vetted and helps build a crucial muscle and tolerance for discussion and dissension within the team. It's about ensuring that critical assumptions are challenged and validated through evidence, rather than simply accepted as gospel.
Data over opinions.
And furthermore, leaders must create a safe environment for learning and explain the strategy clearly, as emphasized in Blue Ocean Leadership. They should also hold regular monthly meetings where they gather direct reports, feedback on how well they're making the transition to the new profiles, insisting that all comments must be illustrated with specific examples.
Specific examples, that's key for actionable feedback.
It is. This level of detailed, honest, and evidence-based feedback is absolutely critical for true validated learning and for informing a potential pivot. Without it, you're merely operating in a vacuum of assumptions, prone to confirmation bias.
And this really reinforces the core idea from Art of the Start 2.0 that ideas are easy, implementation is hard.
So true.
It encourages you to start right away talking to people about your ideas, getting them out of your head and into the world. Why? Because the more people you talk to, the richer your thoughts will be.
Early feedback is gold.
This continuous open conversation, fueled by a genuine willingness to listen and adapt, is the lifeblood of the learning loop that allows for strategic agility and makes any subsequent pivot an informed decision. It's about getting your assumptions out of your head and into the real world as quickly as possible to get that crucial, unfiltered feedback.
Test early, test often.
I have seen countless brilliant ideas wither on the vine simply because their creators were too afraid to expose them to the light of day and the invaluable critique of potential users.
Precisely. These robust feedback loops and continuous adjustments are how businesses truly transform and remain competitive, especially in today's increasingly volatile markets. It's about being incredibly observant about the market, your customers, your own performance, and then being courageous enough to act decisively on what you learn.
Even if it means a big change.
Even if it means changing a fundamental aspect of your approach, what we call a pivot in the lean startup context.
Yeah.
Sometimes this courage involves very difficult, deeply personal leadership decisions.
The really tough calls.
The hard thing about hard things vividly illustrates this, such as when a leader has to consider demoting a loyal friend to bring in someone with more experience to run a critical function. These are the hard things that managers frequently face when adapting strategy.
Oh, yeah.
It underscores the gut-wrenching process of navigating a startup through uncertainty.
Yeah.
But these kinds of decisions are often absolutely necessary pivots to ensure the company's survival and long-term success, prioritizing the validated learning and strategic direction over personal comfort or historical loyalties.
That's a powerful point, and it's about making those tough calls when the learning dictates it, even when it's personally costly. We also see this commitment to validated learning and strategic agility on an enormous scale in how companies like Google and Facebook leverage data.
The tech giants live this.
Facebook's loyalty prediction service, for instance, doesn't just analyze past behavior. It uses what's often referred to as behavioral surplus, all the incidental data generated from our digital lives beyond what's explicitly needed for a particular service to predict individuals who are at risk of shifting their brand allegiance.
Wow, predicting churn before it happens.
Exactly. The idea is that these incredibly precise predictions can then trigger real-time targeted interventions to stabilize loyalty. This is an incredibly advanced, sophisticated form of innovation accounting,
Using data for proactive adaptation.
using deep data insights to validate and adapt business strategy and customer engagement in real time, effectively executing continuous micro-pivots in marketing, communication, and product offerings to stay ahead.
It's the ultimate manifestation of being a true learning organization. They're constantly measuring, predicting, and adapting their approach based on an ever-evolving, data-driven understanding of their users and the market.
Always tweaking, always learning.
This goes far beyond just reacting to what has already happened. It's about anticipating and proactively shaping the future based on validated insights, making their strategic shifts almost imperceptible, yet incredibly powerful.
Ultimately, then, it's about making peace with perpetual motion and designing your entire company to be a learning machine, always ready to absorb new information, constantly challenge its assumptions, and, critically, shift gears to pivot when the validated learning points to a different, more promising direction.
Embracing the change.
It's less about having all the answers up front, which is frankly an impossible dream in today's world, and more about having the best, most agile system for finding those answers along the way.
The journey of a startup, or indeed any innovative venture, is profoundly less about arriving at a fixed, predetermined destination and far more about engaging in a dynamic, continuous process of discovery.
The journey is the destination, in a way.
You could say that. The sources we've explored today really emphasize that in a world defined by profound uncertainty, the most reliable and objective measure of progress isn't merely growth, but the rate and quality of your learning.
How fast and how well you learn.
Exactly. Innovation accounting provides the objective, empirical means to track that learning, allowing you to clearly discern whether you're making real, validated progress or simply being busy without real impact.
Busy work versus productive learning.
In a culture of open feedback, Iterative execution and courageous leadership provides the essential agility to respond to that learning, empowering the strategic decisions, often in the form of a pivot, that allow a business to not just survive, but truly thrive.
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is how this scientific approach to business transforms what might otherwise feel like a series of just gut-wrenching, make-or-break decisions into a structured, manageable process.
It provides a framework for the chaos.
It reminds us that real innovation doesn't thrive in the absence of mistakes. It thrives in the efficiency of learning from them, rapidly and relentlessly. It's about embracing the pivot not as a sign of failure, but as a clear indicator of intelligent adaptation,
A sign you're paying attention and responding.
making it arguably the most powerful tool for navigating extreme uncertainty. So as you reflect on your own projects and goals, perhaps even your career trajectory, consider this provocative thought. In an era of information overload and constant accelerating change, are you truly designed for validated learning?
Hmm. That's a deep question.
Are you objectively measuring what you're discovering, and do you possess the agility and the courage to pivot when the data demands it? Or are you, perhaps, like those in The Big Short, who found their firms could not afford to change their mind, even when the data was screaming at them?
Stuck in their old models.
Sometimes unable to let go of what you thought you knew. The ability to learn and adapt, objectively and consistently, might just be your single most powerful asset for success, no matter what uncharted territory lies ahead.